cloud computing looks like. Let's now examine what the basic challenges that organizations face in the education and training services. As per an IDC report 2011, one of the major factors has been the volume of data. It is estimated that over the next 5 years, more than 2.5 billion users will connect to the internet, which essentially is a phenomenally high number. Second, Intel has published a report which says that 8 times the amount of storage capacity, 16 times the network capacity, and 20 times the current compute capacity would be what would be required to cater to the new users that will typically be coming onto the internet. Second, budgets, which are extremely important for any organization. Most organizations would look for a higher investment or a better return on the investment that they have already made or that they plan to do in the future. Second, it would be more computing at a less cost, which essentially means how you could reduce the cost and increase the computing power. Third would be using less of an on-site infrastructure, which basically means using probably lesser amount of hardware and infrastructure which is on-premise, which you can actually have it on the cloud and do a great combination between what is on-premise and what is on the cloud. Another major problem which comes with a lot of hardware institutions is the obsolescence of hardware. So which essentially means you buy hardware which gets outdated in probably a year's time, 3 years time, it gets outdated. So you would not have really any use of that hardware. So organizations would look to reduce that. The next one would be more in terms of maintenance cost. When you have new hardware, there will be at least a 10% cost which needs to be incurred to maintain the annual maintenance contracts, etc., which will be there. So more the hardware, more the maintenance costs that will typically be there. Another interesting concept which is typically there is in terms of something called as a pay-per-use model versus a fixed cost. Most of the infrastructure in academic institutions goes towards the computer infrastructure, so which is a fixed cost which goes up year upon year. Compared to that, if a model can be offered which people pay as they use. I mean, there's nothing as an initial investment which they need to make, but as they use the model, that's how they pay. So this is some of the things which are there. The other factors which would typically be there would be the technical skills constraint. Assume you're an academic institution located in a remote part of India. One of the primary things is getting good people or good organizations to maintain your infrastructure, which is basically your hardware and your software. If you have a lot of critical applications, you need to have 24/7 support, which becomes a major challenge. Second major problem would be the faculty and the staff who normally double up to maintain and run the infrastructure within the colleges and the universities. It's a major burden, and a lot of times the academic curriculum and the teaching suffers because people are drawn in multiple directions to support the hardware. The other major thing which would be there would be the large number of stakeholders within a university. If you can imagine, most universities would have a minimum of 25 to 30 departments. Each department would have its own requirements in terms of hardware, software, which a lot of times become islands by themselves. So the managements typically are forced to go for diverse hardware requirements, which consolidating becomes an extremely challenging thing. The other major issue which needs to be considered is nowadays most important thing would be collaboration between the various stakeholders. So whether it's students, whether it's faculty. So if you have a single platform or a compatible platform, the cost of procurement, the cost of maintenance, and the incompatibility which exists between the various departments can be reduced. So primarily, if you have one single model, it helps the organization to tremendously save on the cost and the effort to maintain. Now coming to some of the myths, I have been involved with the deployment of over 100 plus cloud facilities within the education environment. And you hear a lot of concerns which are shared both by management, faculty, and the students. One of the first things that which has been shot at me was that the cloud computing is a passing phase. It's one of the new technologies which has come, which will go. So do we kind of latch on to it? The other major thing which is asked is my data secure? I'm putting all my data on the cloud. So is it secure? Is it safe? Third, a lot of times people would not like to see the university or the college data by somebody else. So is it a concern which is shared both within departments, within the college to another college, who's probably in the same space? So that's another concern which is typically there. Next comes what happens to the hardware or the data in case of a crash scenario. The service provider issues is also something that's shared. What happens? Do I kind of work with that particular organization? Do I support them? Do I trust them? So that's essentially the kind of thing which a lot of people have asked me. Next comes the migration, which is basically when you're migrating to the cloud, what are the the issues, the challenges that are typically there. The last, which is always there, is are there some hidden costs? A lot of times the basic services in cloud are free, but most people would like to know what are the hidden costs, what are the things that I don't see on the paper. So I would try in my presentation to kind of answer all these things and clear the doubts so that people have a better clarity in terms of moving to the cloud. Let me start off with the two major components